Hey everybody, this is Dana with CoachDanaInspires.com, and I am really excited for today's interview. We have got a great guest today, and our guest today is Irvine Nugent, and that name may be familiar to you because our friend Irvine has been here once before earlier in the show. And so we have him back because he has a fabulous book. And we want everyone to know about the book and know about the importance of what the message is in this book. So, Irvine, I'm so happy you're here. Great stuff in the book. I love it. Um, Tell me, how are you doing? Let's just start off. How are you? How's the fam? How's everybody?
Well, thank you. Thanks for the invitation to come on again. Yeah, things are good. Business wise, I things are picking up. There's a definite shift now, and we are entering uncertain territory once again. And business wise, for me personally, what I'm encountering is the debate whether future meetings will be virtual, will be hybrid, will be in person. I've just encountered a few meetings that have switched to be in person with the latest news. But with clients, what's interesting, Dan, I'm not sure if you're experiencing this as well, is, there's a little trepidation as well. It's like we've got into a system of working at home, and what does return to office mean? And so there's a lot of, it's change, and we don't like change. And so there is, and I think, organizations are going to have to work that out and really deal with some of the trepidation that people are feeling.
Right. And I think, when we all went to work at home, I mean, I've worked at home for a long time. So to me, it was like, yeah, nothing new here. But for those who went from the office to work from home, it was sort of like, you have to.
Yeah.
Otherwise, everyone's going to be sick. So, okay, there was a purpose for hunkering down and staying in your home office. But now I've gotten used to this. People have this comfort level, and now I think going back into the offices, I think it's going to be more and more, I think, challenging for um, businesses to get their
Yeah.
folks to come back, because now it's kind of like,
Yeah.
I don't have to.
Yeah, or at least what I'm hearing is, well, can I just come back like one day or 2 days maybe, or when I'm really needed, and I think one of the blessings really out of this is people have realized, or businesses have realized, what we don't necessarily need people in the office to be functional and to get work done. So
Right.
I mean, it provides different options, and I think at the end of the day, we want work-life balance, and we want to feel enthusiastic about work. So it'll be interesting. It'll how we come out of this and where we land
Yeah.
is to be determined, but fascinating.
Yes, yes. And I think also, um, you know, I think the reason before COVID, you couldn't work from home because I don't think you're going to do your work. You're
Yeah,
just going to be messing around. You're not going to do your work. Well, now everyone had to go home, and now they realize, managers, directors, owners realize that people are doing their work,
yeah,
and so it's like,
mm,
I
yeah,
could save money this way.
yes.
So yeah, excellent stuff. So you're here because I wanted to highlight your book because I think you're the cat's meow, and I love what you do. You talk about emotional intelligence.
Mhm.
Now I'm married to an engineer, so
Yes.
that means I beat my head against the wall constantly. I love all you engineers out there, but in reality, you know who you are, and you know that emotional intelligence is not on the high point of your list. So this is the book, Leadership Lessons from the Pub. I don't know if it's backwards for the viewers or not, but there it is, Leadership Lessons from the Pub. Irvine Nugent, there he is, and Irvine, first and foremost, um, it says harnessing the power of emotional intelligence to build a fully engaged workplace. And who doesn't want a fully engaged workplace?
Yep.
Hello. So,
Yep.
why is the pub? We're talking about a pub here. Very quickly, and just a snippet. Why did you talk about a pub, and how did you learn lessons from a pub? Let's just ask that question.
So the pub is personal because I grew up in Northern Ireland and I
Right.
grew up in a pub. My family lived literally above the pub that we owned. So I like to say it's part of our DNA. From the age of 6, you were shoved in there and get to work, collect some glasses. And it was part of my growing up experience. And so where the book really came from was, many years of listening to leaders. One of the things that keeps up time and time again is how do we deal with workplace engagement? How do we make this a place where people want to go to, are enthusiastic? And the more I thought about that, the more I thought, you know what? Here is an institution many hundreds of years old,
Yes.
which has been doing something right. Because if you go to Ireland or the UK, they'll call that their local. It's the place where they go. It's the place where they find community.
Right.
My dad had an expression, and it was, I'm not in the business of selling drink. I'm in the business of creating a home. And I think there's all you need to find. Yeah, because really yes, drink is present there, but that's not the dynamic. The dynamic is this community where people feel they belong. And another interesting dynamic about the pub is you don't have to put on your airs and graces. You go there with your warts and all. You don't have to be the perfect person. In fact, it's not expected. And you go and you tell the stories of life and things that are going wrong. And there's sympathy and people are there with you, which is an interesting dynamic. And then another dynamic that's really powerful, I think, is, the CEO can sit down and have a conversation with the farmer. There's no airs and graces. It's everyone is equal there. We're all in it for the same, and which is an interesting dynamic. And I think where the world of work is going as well. So it struck me, you know what? The pub has a lot to teach us. And so that's really where the inspiration came from.
And I love it because I know that a lot of our viewers, you don't have to, people say, oh yeah, I have a regular place to go. And sometimes that might have a negative connotation, like, well, how much do you drink, But I used to go to a place constantly when I lived in San Diego County, and I drank soda water with a squeeze of lime. That's what I drank.
Absolutely.
I wasn't pounding down, glass after glass of some high octane thing. I drove home. I was sober. Because I didn't drink anything. So, but everyone was there. So I absolutely understand and know what you're talking about. And people remember the old show Cheers, when they all knew each other. Yep. And, when Norm would come in, hi Norm, there is validity to that situation, I think, for all of us. And so, the pub could really be a teacher for leaders and organizations. And I think what you were just saying is really true. Do you want to embellish on a little bit? Not embellish, but you want to go a little more detail about that?
Yeah, I think there are many lessons that come from the pub. First of all, like one of the key ones is that in Ireland we have this term that when you go and visit a pub and you have a conversation afterwards, where did you go? Well, I went to Dooley's pub. And how was the evening? And you'll say, sure, the crack was great. And crack there is CRAIC, which is the Irish for enjoyment, entertainment, atmosphere. So there's a notion there that there's something about the pub that people are attracted to. In this term, we use crack. And in many ways, I allude that's really emotional contagion. So in other words, the leader has the power to set the tone. And at times, I think we totally forget how influential we are because we're living in the midst of a pandemic and, this invisible virus is around us. Well, our emotions in many ways are around us as well. And we literally catch them from other people. So what the pub does very well, our good pub does very well, the leader, the barman, the barwoman, whoever the owner is sowing those emotions. And one of the other things then about a pub is it creates great community. Now, if you ever go to a pub in Ireland, one of the things that'll happen if you're by yourself, all of a sudden within at least 10 minutes, someone will sit next to you and will start talking to you. And you may think, mind your own business, but really it's something that's delightful because what's happening is they're expanding the circle and they want to bring you into the circle. So there's this inclusive place that has space for everyone. And, in many ways, that's what we want in our workplace. We want a place to belong. We want the circle to expand. We want to be brought in. We want people to know that they are valuable, that they have a contribution to make, and that can only happen when people feel that they're included in that. So they're just like two little lessons that are coming out of the pub, and there's so many others.
I really agree with you 100%. I mean, you grew up there. My husband, my dearest John, we took our honeymoon in Ireland, and we went all the way around the coast, all the way around. And every place we went, we would go into a pub. And now, again, my sweet husband is an engineer, and I am not. And so I would instantly make friends. I mean, we were talking to people all the time. And it, to me, that made it so much more enjoyable. Now, John enjoyed it, but he would not be the instigator of it. If someone came and spoke to him, he would talk to them. But, you know, I sometimes instigated the conversation or would make some comment about football that was playing on TV. You know, what team you for? Oh, yay, and me too. You know, half the time I didn't know the teams, but yay, I was rooting for the owner's team, no matter what it was. And, you know, you just felt so welcome and so included. And everybody kind of knew each other, and they knew you, even though you were just there for a few hours. So absolutely, I love that. I love it. Why is emotional intelligence? Let's get back to this emotional intelligence thing, because I think it's really important. So why is emotional intelligence so critical for the leader or a manager to have? Why do we really need to cultivate it if we don't have it?
Well, you know, it's really interesting. When I do my workshops, one of the things that I do at the beginning is I ask people, think about a memorable leader, a memorable manager. What is it that made them memorable? And I get them to write down all the different things. And invariably, when you try to categorize what they're writing things like they showed compassion, they listened to me, they challenged me, they were a mentor to me. They're all aspects of emotional intelligence. And so what I like to say, you know what, I'm not trying to say that you don't need intelligence or you need technical skills. They will get you in the door. But if you want to have impact, if you want to grow as a leader, then it's the emotional intelligence that will really get you to the next level. And really, when it comes to emotional intelligence, I'm talking about 4 different things. One is you've got self-awareness. You're able to know what's happening to you in the moment. You're able to know your emotions, your triggers. You're able to have tools to manage those. So that's the second, self-regulation or self-management. And then the third area is you're able to look at other people and you're able to read what's happening to them. What emotions are coming up within them? Am I able to recognize them? Do I have empathy to be able to connect with that person? And then the fourth area is relationship management. It's putting everything together, because ultimately what emotional intelligence is about, it's about improving our relationships, building on those connections, and successfully having an outcome which builds up that relationship.
And honestly, when you said, you know, think about your favorite managers, what made them so wonderful, and that I could think back all the way to high school.
Yeah.
You know, my very favorite teacher, Coach Golden, he had these hazel eyes that it was like he was reading your soul. You know, he just like looked at you, but he cared for all of us so much that we did more for him than anybody else, because he knew we could do it.
Yeah.
And he never beat it into us. Well, you're not beating, but you know, he never badgered us. He never made us feel stupid. It was just, so next time, are you going to do better? Or next time, are you going to try harder? Next time, are you going to, you know, it was that caring about, and everybody felt it. So it was just a wonderful thing. Managers that I could just wish I could still work for. They're just so wonderful. So yeah, great stuff. Well, you know, your book here, I'd like to just touch on something here. In chapter 9, I know you have all your chapters memorized there. So in chapter 9, no, the book is. So in chapter 9, you were talking, I'm on page 125. And so it says here that you refer to thin places. Thin places speak to our hearts and our soul. Talk to me about thin places. What is that? What do you mean by that? It's really lovely. I mean, I've read the book, So share with our viewers what do you mean by that?
So a thin place is from the Gaelic Ceolaite, which is so first of all, it's a term from Celtic spirituality, and the Celts believed that there were physical locations, physical places in Ireland, where when you entered them, something special happened. And how they explained it was that the veil between heaven and earth was thin. And so there was a feeling of the divine, the other, there that was different and more powerful than in other places. And so like I mentioned in the book, one of my favorite places is the earliest site of monasticism in Ireland, which is Glendalough, just outside of Dublin. And you just go there and there is a feeling of intense peace. You cannot help but be in that place and not become more introspective and just calm down. It gives you a calmness and you think, what's happening? So I love that term so much. I began to think about, what if we were thin places? What if leaders and managers were thin places? So that our presence, how we came into conversations was such that people began to feel something different. Because we live in a world where we are harried, we are rushed, we've so much complexity, and our ability just to give attention has been so diminished. And I think the greatest gift that we can give another human being is to be 100% present, to listen with our heart and our soul, and just to be there. And when you do that, it feels different. A person feels that. And so I love this thin place being a place where our presence is such that a person can really feel connected with us, that we're able to expand maybe the horizon. So someone comes to us with a problem, they're so fixated on it, and they come into our presence, they feel some peace, and we're able to suggest something that helps them to see other possibilities, which is also a quality about a thin place. So I love that term, and I love and I use it in a way that perhaps we could be thin places. Like you just talked about it, Dana, with the coach. I mean, you went to the coach and the coach made you feel a different way. There was something about that coach's presence that was different.
Yeah, and that was very true. And when I wrote that book, You Have the Power of Kindness, and he was one of the people I dedicated the book to, because he, to this day, and it was more than 10 years ago that I was in high school, but he still has an impact on me. Knowing what he taught me really changed my world. So I think we can do that same thing in business. I think, do you find that managers, directors, people who are, above, feel like they don't want to get too touchy-feely? I don't want to get too, this means getting too friendly with people, getting too personal with people. Is that a problem? Do you hear that a lot? What's your answer to that?
That's interesting. I do hear that sometimes. What I hear more often is I don't have time. So in other words, there's a perception that if I'm going to take time to listen to you, then you know what? Where am I going to fit that in? Because I have 9,722 other things to do today, and spending time with you was not one of them. And what I always like to say to people, it's not so much the quantity, but the quality. And I said, you can have a 15-minute conversation with someone, or you can have a 5-minute conversation with someone. And if you're truly engaged in that 5 minutes, then that will feel much longer. It's almost like the way I describe it in the book is that time begins to stretch, because the quality of the presence is so strong. Mm-hmm. And if you're talking with someone who's distracted for 15 minutes, it's like, oh my God, what's the point? I mean, really? And the person leaves just more frustrated. So it's now, I fully recognize for busy managers and leaders, that's not an easy thing. And it requires, the ability to be very present with oneself before you start a conversation, to have almost like a technique that can kind of reset and begin to kind of get into that mode. But it really is, it's a few minutes of real presence goes a long way.
Yeah, and I agree with that, absolutely. And you talk a lot about storytelling, why is storytelling so important? So if I'm, someone's the CEO, the manager of this big department, you're running a bunch of people. Why should they care about storytelling?
It's a great point. Great question. So let me just give you an example. Like I do quite a bit of work with physician leaders. And if you've ever been to like a physician kind of conference or a physician meeting, one of the dangers is it can become a data dump. So basically what happens is we have all these statistics and everything that's happening, and we have to do this trend or that trend or whatever. And I say, you know what? Stories are memorable. And if there's a way that we can take some of the message that we need to convey and we can put that in a story. So for example, I could talk to you about all the statistics to do with diabetes and how we as a health organization are dealing with that. But if I talk to you about, let me tell you the story of Sheila, who is struggling with diabetes and her encounter with our medical office. That in many ways, you can get across exactly what you need to say, but you will do it in a way that is memorable. And mark my words, if you stop someone after that meeting and you ask them, what do you remember about that meeting? Oh, I remember the story of Sheila. You know, so it's sticky. It's a way of us emotionally connecting. Because if we want things to be like, as a leader and as a manager, if you want things to stick with people, there has to be emotional connection. Right. And one of the ways that you create emotional connection is through story. And it's a powerful, I like call it like it's a delivery vehicle that helps you convey a message, a vision, a future, or a change. You know, kind of like change management is a struggle for leaders. Well, what if you tell a story about what change may look like? You know, if we do the change, if we do the hard work, here's what our future might look like, and paint a story of that, it's going to have much more impact.
I like that. Yes, yes. I hope everybody's listening and thinking about stories you can tell, so you too can make an impact on these things. One of the things, why is, so people have good stories, bad stories, you know, stories that inspire, maybe not. So why do we need to know our own conflict story? Why is that important?
Well, you know, we as adults, we have difficult conversations. And that's part and parcel of living in our personal relationships, with our children, with our spouses, our partners, at work, etc. And we have I like to call it, we have a relationship with conflict. And it normally is formed from childhood upwards. And it's important to know that, because that's self-awareness. So sometimes for me, it is, I don't want to touch conflict with a 10-foot pole. And so when I hear the word difficult conflict, then what I'm going to do is kind of retract. Or is one of the things you can see this showing up in a business is, you know what, I don't need to intervene. Let them sort it out. Then I'll get involved. And of course, what happens is you have this festering, which only gets worse. Or you may say, I just love to get stuck in. I love conflict. And I'll start it as well. And then in that tendency, what seems to happen is this person intervenes too early. And because really as adults, you also want to let people sort out their problems. You don't want to let people to dump all their problems on you and solve it. So, but that insight into conflict, that story helps us. And then as it happens, we can say, oh, there's the story coming up again. I'm feeling this tension. I don't want to get involved. And maybe it is the moment for me to get involved. Or oh, here it is again. I want to get in. I want to get involved in this. But maybe what I need to do is just sit back a little bit and observe. So all of that is, that's what I mean by kind of our conflict story and how it informs our approach to conflict.
Right. Yeah. Very good point. And boy, oh boy, we could talk forever about these stories that this is crazy. Why is this only 25 minutes? This is insane. Irvine, we could be on for an hour. I know this. So we don't want to keep everybody, but this has been wonderful. Just another, I'm just pitching this book because it's fabulous. It's, usually, I always want authors to be sure and talk about their book, and that's great, but I am just telling you, this is good stuff. Emotional intelligence. It's not just heebie-jeebie, feel good. No, it's really, and it takes hard work too.
Yeah.
If you're not that woman, sometimes people could call me prickly, which I can be, but I have tremendous empathy for people, and sometimes it gets you into trouble. You really I can go overboard. So I've had to learn to, and sometimes I think, you kind of talk a little bit about growing into this. And I think that's really important, that it's not natural to everybody. And so again, my engineer husband, and then there's me. So, it's a kind of a dance.
It is, but the great news about emotional intelligence is it's not like IQ. When we get to a certain age in IQ, we've kind of reached our level, and you can increase it a little bit, but not much. With emotional intelligence, an opportunity every day to grow and to add skills. And some people are more naturally talented just because of the way they were socialized. But for other people, maybe some more introverts, etc., like your husband, doesn't come quite naturally. However, that does not mean in any way that they cannot learn the skill sets that will help them improve their connection and their communication. And one of the things I've tried to do in the book is to put like a free e-course that goes with it, because really you got to practice this. And that's where the rubber meets the road. So it's packed with all different types of exercises to really drive home the point I'm trying to make, and to help you have some practical tools to increase your emotional intelligence.
And that course comes with the book?
Comes with the book. Yep. There's the details are in the book, and you can get it there. And it's a great place for extra resources.
Absolutely. Well, that's fabulous. And speaking of extra resources, we're going to go and share your information with the folks out here. And if I can get my computer to wobble or wiggle. There you go. Thank you so much. So Irvine Nugent, here's his phone number, his email. Look him up, see what he does. He is a fabulous trainer, speaker, really author. So if you want to know anything about this, reach out to Irvine. Such a gracious guy. So our time is over, Irvine. I'm so sorry to end this. I can't believe we are done. So thank you so much, Irvine, for being here. Thanks, everybody, for watching. And we'll see you next Tuesday on Business Inspiration. See you later.
Thanks, everyone.